What's up, G Show Land? It is me, G1, and I am joined once again by my partner, G95. What's up, brother?
Nothing much. Excited to be here for a very special one.
Oh, you know it's special. You know what today is. Today is Wednesday, and that means it's Comic Book Talk. Comic Talk, the G Show's Comic Talk, issue number 3. And today we are, ladies and gentlemen, spoiler review of Captain America Civil War. That's right. The movie that dropped this past weekend and made a buttload of money. Unbelievably so. G95, are you ready to rock this?
I am ready.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, man, if you haven't watched Captain America Civil War yet, man, listen, jump out of this. Hit the like button regardless. Just come back when you've watched the movie, because believe you me, you want to watch this movie. This movie is fantastic. It is amazing. It is spectacular. It is Spider-Man. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say that? I'm sorry. Spoiler. But if you haven't seen the trailers, you would not know that Spider-Man is in this movie. And I'm telling you right now, Spider-Man is in this movie, and it is Marvel's version of Spider-Man, not Sony's. Marvel's version of Spider-Man on lease by Sony. And it is the greatest Spider-Man adaptation to date. Seriously. Take every cartoon, every movie, throw it out of the window. This is the Spider-Man from the comics, and it is absolutely amazing. Tom Holland, the kid who plays Peter Parker, a.k.a. Spider-Man for those who don't know, and if you don't, wow. But y'all know he is absolutely perfect in this role. It's a very small role, but the role matters regardless, nonetheless, blah, 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 yakety schmackety. Let's jump right in. G95. Okay, real quick. Spoiler review, everybody. Again, if you have not seen Civil War, come back to this, because we're going to spoil everything. Boom. G95. You've seen this movie?
Yes, I have.
Your initial thoughts?
I was blown away. I don't think I've been more blown away and awestruck by a movie since Mad Max, since Fury Road came out about a year ago.
Wow, good call.
I think this might have actually blown me more away just by the spectacle and by how fucking engaged I was than Star Wars did. And that's Star Wars was obviously one of the best movies that came out.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you can see my face right now, I've got the face of, that's right, utter shock. But go ahead, G95. I'm sorry for interrupting.
I need to see Civil War a second time. I wanted to see Civil War a second time before we recorded this, but I didn't have a chance. But just to get a really good feel for it and decide, oh, did it really blow me away more than Star Wars did? But as of right now, I was more just in awe with what I saw than with what Star Wars did to me.
Hey, I can't even be mad at you.
Like I said, I haven't been that just fucking mind blown by a movie since I saw Fury Road about a year ago.
That's awesome, man. I was fortunate enough to see this movie last Wednesday. Then, of course, I went opening night, saw it Thursday, and then I went again Saturday, saw it again Saturday, and it literally just, the little things that you might have missed comes and it just pops at you, and it's, oh my God. Listen, I have been adamant about the Avengers and Spider-Man 2 being the greatest comic book movies I've ever seen. Now, see, I love Batman and The Dark Knight, okay? Not The Dark Knight Rises, but The Dark Knight, the second one with Heath Ledger's Joker, is one of my favorite superhero movies. For me, technically, doesn't feel like a comic book movie. It feels more like a graphic novel, and for all you comic book enthusiasts out there, please understand where I'm coming from. I'm sure most of you do, if not all of you do. It feels more like a graphic novel, The Dark Knight, than a actual 23-page comic book single issue. So I've always separated the two as far as which was my favorite. I could never go against the. I can never pit Avengers versus The Dark Knight or Spider-Man 2 versus The Dark Knight, because for me they were like two different things. Avengers and Spider-Man 2, for instance, felt like a comic book. Felt like 22, 23 pages of pure, unadulterated fun that you get every Wednesday when you go to the comic shop and pick up your books. Whereas The Dark Knight felt like something that was more refined, something that took a couple of months to make, and you get the nice, fat trade by itself. That being all said, Civil War knocked me right out. I literally, it KO'd me. Seriously, I've never felt this way in a comic book movie, whether I think it's a graphic novel or a straight up comic book standalone. It blew me away. In every sense of the word, what the Avengers did when it first came out was phenomenal. It took all of these pieces that they left laying around on the floor and put it together to form one epic movie / puzzle, if you will. Civil War did not have to do that because the pieces were already in place. And what they did was enhance the story. They brought more. I mean, I personally don't like Avengers Age of Ultron. I watched it recently. It was better than I remembered it being. But compared to most of the Marvel movies I love, it's at the bottom. Or one of the ones at the bottom. Captain America Civil War just dismantled everything. Listen, man, you got permission to use Spider-Man. I cannot stress this enough. Spider-Man is my favorite Marvel character. You've got permission to use Spider-Man from Sony because Sony was sinking, and they knew that. Amazing Spider-Man 1 and Amazing Spider-Man 2, and even Spider-Man 3, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 3, those three movies were not successful hits the way Sony wanted them to be. Okay, I know people like Amazing Spider-Man 1. I hated it. I know there are some fans of Amazing Spider-Man 2, but that movie gets a lot more negative than positive. So Spider-Man was in the shitter, you know? And here comes Marvel saying, hey, let's make a deal. Let us do Spider-Man. It comes out under your name. We're going to let you we're going to let you distribute the movie. We're going to make it, though. And they fucking nail Spider-Man. And I'm not saying Spider-Man is what makes Civil War, but holy fuck me, bro. Spider-Man makes Civil War. There's a shit ton more to it. But Spider-Man was one of the greatest things, one of the greatest pieces, if not the piece, of this big Marvel Cinematic Universe puzzle. And Kevin Feige and the rest of Marvel and Disney got Spider-Man. And here we are with the absolutely amazing Civil War. Because what happens with him in that movie, and that is, we're going to get into spoilers real soon. I'm just going crazy because, again, Spider-Man is my favorite. And to see him in, his 16 minutes of glory of this movie, and if you guys stayed for, like, the last bit after all the credits ran, you get to see Peter Parker again, and spoiler alert, but I already warned you, the spider signal on the ceiling, man, forget it, man. My mind, blown. Hey, G95, man, you gotta take it away.
No, you covered quite a bit of it. For me, it wasn't just Spider-Man that made the movie. You know, Spider-Man was awesome. Spider-Man was, in a word, spectacular or amazing. Excuse me. But the movie as a whole was just, I thought, brilliant. Like, how they set it up, and the story could have been, maybe was a little bit generic, but they did throw enough twists and turns in there to make it a fresh take, I guess. To not necessarily keep you guessing, but to make it where you're like, okay, I know what's going to happen. For me, it wasn't just just Spider-Man in that big fight scene, the war scene, more or less.
Right.
It wasn't just Spider-Man that made that scene. That scene as a whole was fucking awesome.
Right.
But spoilers, we got Giant Man
Woo!
finally.
Woo!
That was. I knew it was coming. We all knew it was coming. I think they announced that Giant Man would be in it.
Oh, I didn't know that. See, I'm just gonna throw this out there, man. I was spoiled by that. It was one of those things I wish I didn't know. So when I seen it in the movie, I would have been like, "Oh my fucking god, fucking Giant Man just oh shit!" Like that would have been my reaction. But a week before I got to see the movie, I was spoiled. So, yeah.
I heard in some news site that he was going to become Giant Man, or that the next, maybe it was right after Ant-Man came out or something. Like somewhere, something said that the next time we see Ant-Man, he would also be Giant Man, just for a little bit, which was awesome. It was so cool.
It was.
What I really liked about it was, story-wise anyway, was, it was kind of building up to this point where more or less the big bad, the kind of the mastermind, whose name escapes me currently.
Zemo.
Zemo, yes. Where he's gonna, you're thinking he's gonna awaken the other 5 Winter Soldiers, and it's gonna be a big battle between these 5 super strong, super Winter Soldiers, versus Bucky, Cap, and Iron Man, and they'd all have to settle their differences, team up, and fight the bad guy and stuff. That's kind of what they were kind of leading us to believe, or what a traditional movie would do. But they went total left turn. You find out that Zemo killed all the other Winter Soldiers, and we're just kind of left with this battle scene between Bucky, Cap, and Iron Man. And in the end, their differences didn't really get solved. And I thought that was pretty cool. Somebody said it wasn't a dark enough movie, and I totally disagree. This was about as dark as it got, possibly darker than Winter Soldier.
Wow, yeah. That could be an argument there. I thought you were going to say BVS, and I'll say no.
No. I left the theater actually saying to my friend who hadn't seen BVS, I told him this is what BVS should have been. This big, awesome spectacle. We all knew Civil War was going to be awesome coming in. BVS was the one that was kind of up in the air, but it didn't deliver in the way Civil War did.
Yeah, and there's reasons. Like for me personally, I totally get that because I felt the same way. And one of the things I kept thinking about while watching Civil War was, this is what was missing in BVS: the dialogue between the characters. Granted, Batman has never met Superman before, and Superman has never met Batman before. But when they meet, you only give them 3 lines, and that's it. And then there's a fight later on. No, and I totally understand how Cap and Iron Man, they have a history. We've got several movies now with them together. They know each other. But the fact remains, with BVS, Clark Kent's a reporter, Bruce Wayne's a billionaire, and he's Batman, and he's freaking smart. Dialogue. Open up a dialogue instead of just, because honestly, and I hate going to the BVS subject when we talk about Civil War, but in Batman vs. Superman, the scene where it's Clark Kent meeting Bruce Wayne for the first time at Lex Luthor's little party, that was a cool sequence. And honestly, the little dialogue was pretty freaking awesome. And I wish there was a lot more of that, especially when they're now in costume. Whereas, again, Captain America and Tony Stark and Iron Man, they know each other. So there's going to be this talking, this rapport, repertoire, whatever you want to call it, between each other. That was lacking in Batman vs. Superman. Dialogue. There was a significant amount of dialogue missing in Batman vs. Superman. There was never any, what's the reason we're doing this? What's the reason we're doing that? Whereas in Civil War, it's laid out. The Sokovia papers, or I forget what it's called. Sokovia.
Sokovia Accords.
The Sokovia Accords. Thank you, sir. They're laid out. We know what the deal is. So it's now, holy crap. As an audience member, you now get to, and I think that's what made this movie work. You have to pick a side as an audience member.
Yeah, and what's cool is both sides have their valid point. Go either way.
Yes.
Really wrong. But it's like, as you said, we don't want to turn this into let's just bash BVS and why isn't BVS more like Civil War? It's just so hard not to compare the two when they're the biggest comic book movies of the year, you know.
Absolutely.
Bigger than Suicide Squad, bigger than X-Men by a long shot, are coming out within a month of each other, and they're featuring our beloved heroes fighting each other. It's so hard not to compare the two. So we have to a degree, but we don't have to make this about just bashing BVS.
And believe me, we're not going to bash Batman versus Superman at all here. We've already said our pieces numerous times, and just now maybe a little bit. But like you nailed it. It's going to happen. It's bound to happen. It's just what it is. You've got your two DC guys going at it. You've got your top two Marvel guys going at it. And, you know, Marvel, they ran away with this, man. They took the ball and ran. The Russo brothers who directed this movie, who enlisted some help, and Lord forgive me for forgetting the names, but the directors of John Wick, they brought them along. The fight choreographer for John Wick, they brought him along to put some of these action sequences together. And my God, when I tell you, the first 15 minutes of this movie with Crossbones going to steal the deadly toxin thingy. Why can't, my brain is not working right now. Apologies, people. But that whole sequence there when you had Falcon, Scarlet Witch, Black Widow, and Captain America taking on a group of bandits and mercenaries. Oh my God. If that wasn't the perfect way to start off a film, man. Especially, it's like set the tone. This is going to be hard hitting. It was light at moments when it needed to be light. For instance, Falcon's, which I loved, his mechanical drone, if you will, which in the comic books is an actual bird, you know, saves Black Widow. And he's like, don't thank me, thank him. And he's like, I'm not thanking that thing. And of course, the name eludes me at the moment.
Redwing.
Redwing, yes, Redwing. And he's like, no, his name is Redwing. Man, listen, as a comic book fan, and I knew that in the theater, please forgive me right now, but I knew that in the theater. I clapped. It was just perfect. It was like, yes. Besides it being funny and giving a little heart to it, it was also like, holy shit, that's right. They know what they're doing. Redwing is a bird. He's an eagle in the comics. He's a legit life form. This was a drone. It makes more sense. It fit perfectly into this movie, into the universe. It makes sense for the technology that they utilize in this universe. I absolutely loved it, man. I absolutely loved it.
Well, I really liked the humor was held off until, like, the brunt held off until end of the second act. Like, or the middle of the second act, you know. The beginning wasn't humorless, but it was much more like a Winter Soldier kind of vibe than it was, say, classic Avengers. You know, there was the quips didn't come in until a little bit later, and I really appreciated that. You know, again, to go back to BVS a little bit, you know, this Civil War is about our heroes having to take accountability for their actions, and that's what BVS was set up to be originally, was Superman having to be accountable for the destruction of Metropolis with fighting Zod. And we didn't really get that much. I mean, we got it, which, you know, again, it's not how it's more like how it's not the subject matter. It's more like how it was actually executed and handled in BVS, and I think it was handled perfectly in Civil War. You said it that it's the best comic book movie ever, and for me, um, I think I agree. I'm still not sure which I like more, Guardians of the Galaxy or Civil War. I need to see Civil War a second time to make that decision. Just like I need to decide as if I was as blown away by it as Star Wars. But
Right.
it is really a almost flawless movie. Every movie has, as the great YouTube channel CinemaSins says, every movie or no movie is without sin. There's some faults in Civil War too. It's not a perfect movie, but we get into the at least in my eyes, you get into the kind of category of nitpicking if you want to pick out the flaws in this. But again, I need to see it a second and probably third time. I need to take it all in and absorb it and appreciate it and look at it from different perspectives and angles. And maybe the next time I'll feel differently. God, I hope not. But yeah, I was really impressed with this, and to see that the Russo brothers are next tackling, the Infinity Wars.
No, which is
that they're, to see what they're going to do with the Avengers, like full fledged and all together and stuff, is going to be incredible.
right. It's funny you bring that up. I was just watching an interview with the Russo brothers after I saw Civil War for my second time, and they were saying that there is a storyboard in their office that has 60 characters on there. Now they didn't go into detail. They didn't say whether it was 60 superheroic characters, maybe some supervillains. They said 60 characters that could have been, that could have been 20 superheroes and 40 peasants. Who knows? Not peasants, bystanders, peasants. Sorry, but just hearing that 60 characters on a storyboard from the Russo brothers' mouth for Infinity War knocked me out. Knocked me out because we know there's a giant roster already. We have the Avengers on Earth. We have the Guardians of the Galaxy. We're gonna get Doctor Strange. Whatever comes out of Thor Ragnarok, and I'm sure. And don't put no stock into this. This is hypothetical, but I'm sure we're gonna see Thor's, some of the Asgardians in Infinity War. Like Lady Sif and all of his crew. We might get some Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Who knows? We might get that TV show pop up. We might get the Netflix characters up in there. I would love to see Daredevil and Luke Cage in there, Jessica Jones, Iron Fist. Why not? I mean, the Defenders is pretty much that crew with Doctor Strange, and I know they got Doctor Strange in the movieverse, but it's all connected. It's all connected. So Marvel going at it in that aspect, they're fucking brilliant, and I cannot wait to see what they come about that. Going back to your point with BVS, and again, we're not knocking it or nothing like that. No, you know what? Not going back to your point with BVS because again, ladies and gentlemen, lost my train of thought. That's what happens. That's what happens. It's Monday. We got to work. It is work, and we're just tired. That's what it is. But yeah, as far as Civil War goes, that's where I was going. As far as Civil War goes, I said it was the greatest comic book movie I've seen, and I'm gonna stick by that. To date, right now, as of this point, there's been no comic book movie better than Captain America: Civil War, and this is coming from somebody who I don't like Captain America. Not in the comic books. I like the movie version of Cap. I think Chris Evans is amazing, but I was never a Captain America fan up until this Marvel Cinematic Universe. There's reasons why I like him a lot in this too. For instance, and this is Wednesday, so this is comic talk, all right? So I'm gonna throw comics into this. This Marvel Cinematic Universe is loosely based off of the Marvel's Ultimate line. So we have the Marvel Ultimate line, And in that Ultimate line, Captain America was cool and all that stuff, but he was also a douche. He really was. He was a douchebag. And you know, for those who might like Captain America in the Ultimate Universe, hey, you know, it's what it is. My hat goes off to you. I personally didn't like him, and I'll put it like this. I think it was the first arc or the second arc. I forget which one it was, but when Banner was like, because the whole thing with the Ultimates was like, oh, they're just this big time superhero team, and there's nobody to fight. We're putting all our tax money into this shit for what? So Bruce Banner was like, oh crap, they're right. We got to give him something to fight, and I'm the Hulk. So let me Hulk out, and then the Avengers could take me down. That was like the first arc, if I'm not mistaken, of the Ultimates. And in that, it was cool. And I loved it. I loved it. It was all good. Hulk did the Hulk's thing. He was Grey Hulk at the time. He smashed. He beat the shit out of Giant Man. At the end of that, though, he goes back to being Bruce Banner. And when he was Bruce Banner, Captain America walks up to him. He's in a ditch because I think there was a tank dropped on him or some crazy shit. But now he's Bruce Banner. He's not the Hulk. And Captain America walks up to him. And Bruce Banner's trying to explain himself to Cap. He's like, listen, man, I'm sorry. I just wanted to do what's right for the team. Give the people a reason to understand and love you guys. Something to that effect. I haven't read it in a while. And what does Captain America do? He kicks him in the face. Bruce Banner was a scrawny, skinny little guy. Puny Banner, as per the Hulk. And Captain America kicks Bruce Banner in the face, knocking him unconscious. Then I think after that, he's like in jail. He's in a cell in the Triskelion, or whatever they called it in the Ultimates comics. And I hated that. I hated that about that Captain. I hated everything about it. When we see the first Avengers movie, and you have that dialogue between Bruce Banner and Steve Rogers, I should say, it was completely different. This Captain America was humble. This Captain America was the embodiment of some meaning, a meaning of greater purpose. And you feel that. And in every Captain America movie since the Avengers, anytime he's in a movie, you feel that from him. And I love that iteration of Captain America. So in this movie, I had a hard time because I was actually Team Iron Man. Because I felt that even though I love this Captain America, the movie version, I really, really do, he is only, 4 years out of the ice? 3-4 years out of the ice. His ideologies are still, for me personally, I felt, wasn't up to date with today's standards and what today as a society we view things as. So, for me, in this movie, Captain America saw in black and white with no shades of gray, whereas Iron Man was bouncing back and forth between the gray. Like, no, dude, listen, they have a point. We have to go with the flow. And I think Black Widow said it the best. She says something to the effect of, listen, Cap, as long as we have one hand on the steering wheel. For me, that was the argument was over right there. I was like, holy shit, she's right. As long as y'all have one hand on the steering wheel as opposed to none. Cap made some really valid arguments, but at the end of the day, I had to side with Tony Stark. Even though I just spewed this whole, love fest for Captain America. How did you feel about that, bro?
Well, I felt it wasn't really touched on as much as I would have liked to in the movie, but I felt, if the Avengers were more or less owned by the UN, there was too much potential for corruption. That was the point they started to go with, and then it really switched over quickly to Cap being like, no, I'm doing this for my best friend. I gotta save him. But the biggest point was like, they'd be under someone else's control. That they would be basically puppets to do. They are Earth's mightiest heroes, and people could definitely abuse that. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Who's to say? The UN would just be like, all right, go go kill all of North Korea. You know, make that place just not exist anymore because it's better for the world. And the Avengers are all about like more or less doing the right thing and morals and all that. You know, obviously this movie deals with their mistakes. You know, all the innocent people who died in Sokovia and the first Avengers in New York and DC and Winter Soldier and all that. But I feel like there's too much potential for corruption for the Avengers to be, you know, not become to not be the Avengers. You know, they wouldn't be watching out for the little guy anymore. They'd be probably just be assassins.
I agree. I agree. And that's one of those things where Captain America was saying was true. It's like, what if they want us to go somewhere we're really not needed, but then don't want us to go someplace where we are? And I totally bought that. Like, that argument was very valid. But again, on the flip side is, if we do have our hand on, at least one hand on the wheel, we have some sort of an open dialogue, you know? And I thought that was beautifully executed. I love that. Because after that, I was just like, okay, now we're in for the spectacle, okay? Because the story's out of the way. And then Cap goes about, like you said, his heart is with Bucky. You know, his loyalty's lie there. That's where he's going. And when you look at it from a today standpoint, it's like, okay. But when you look at it from his standpoint, it's like, that's all we ever had. And you got to remember, he is a man out of time. So I love that you brought that up, because it makes absolute sense for him to do that. And, you know, I don't fault him for that. I couldn't, like, when he said, for instance, he goes, I forgot what I think he was telling Black Widow, I'm the one that's going to bring him in because I'm the one with the least chance of dying. Something to that effect. And I was just like, he's right. If he's going to go in to take Bucky down, not to kill him, but to take him down and be like, look, man, we got to hear your side of the story, but the only way we're going to do that is if I bring you to justice, then so be it. And I like that. But then you had Thunderbolt Ross being Thunderbolt Ross from the comics, and yeah, it's just like he's just a jerk, and I loved it because I was like, that's the character. That's what he does in the comics to the Hulk. That's what he did, if I'm not mistaken, after Secret Invasion. And that was a while back. I haven't read that in a long time, so I might be mistaken. But it was cool to see him there again, and in that role as like the Secretary of Defense, and just straight up telling him, look, if you're not signing this, then you're retired. You know, it's like, yeah, that, you know what? Fuck it, right? Let's go. But yeah, man.
Well, like I was saying, both sides do have very valid point. I do think Tony was right that the Avengers do need to be kept in check and need to be accountable for what they do. They can't just be causing wanton to just destruction and doing whatever, you know. They don't need to drop buildings on the big bads to beat them. They should be accountable for what they do, because, you know, they are more or less gods among men, and they should be. I don't really know where I'm going with that, but you know what I mean.
I got you. So let me ask you this: we've touched upon our feelings between the battle between Cap and Iron Man and the ideologies, but let's get into characters here, man. What did you think of Prince, or now King, T'Challa, aka the Black Panther?
I loved him. He was so cool. Oh, he was the best. I don't know a whole lot about Black Panther. I think the only thing of, I guess, Black Panther, that material that I've delved into was the Avengers Assemble movies that came out like 10 years ago, the animated ones.
Okay, those were those were loosely based. No, not loosely, but those were based off the Ultimate Comics. I know what you're talking about.
Yep. Yeah, I think they were called like Ultimate Avengers Assemble or something like that.
Yes.
Or Ultimate Avengers. So that's the only bit of Black Panther that I really know. I know the basic. That um, he's the leader of his country, and this country is the wealthiest country in the world, and has a shit ton of vibranium, like the most, basically all of the vibranium.
Right.
And he's the protector. He's the Black Panther. This rite of passage that's been passed down from king to prince for generations. that's the base knowledge of Black Panther, and I think they did a really good job of introducing him into this world. A friend at work was saying that he was pretty hesitant about it, how they're going to be balancing all these characters and stuff. And I think they handled it really well, especially with 2 or 3 newcomers to the MCU, with being Black Panther and Spider-Man, and to a degree Vision. I mean, he was introduced in Age of Ultron, but this is where we get to see him as a more fleshed out character.
Totally agree with you. I absolutely agree with you there. With the Vision, yeah, you nailed it. They totally fleshed him out more in this one, and I absolutely adored Vision in this movie. He was the comic relief without him knowing, and I love that. Black Panther, though, I am not as versed in Black Panther lore as I feel I should be, but I do know a lot more than your average person who is a non-comic book fan, I guess, which is not much. But I'll tell you this. There's been a couple of pre-Avengers Disassemble comics that I've read with Black Panther. The last one being written by Jeff Johns, where he basically showcased Black Panther. Like, that was Black Panther's arc, and at the end of that arc, Black Panther breaks. I mean, like, he punches Red Skull and not breaks his jaw, disintegrates the jaw. Like, the jaw just, like, shatters into a billion pieces. It was crazy, and I was like, wow, that's Black Panther. That was, like, my first legit exposure to him. In the comic book run, there was a writer, Reginald Hudling, who does, if I'm not mistaken, and I might be, but I hope I'm not, Reginald Hudling created the Boondocks series, which was the comic strip, and then went to Cartoon Network on Adult Swim, which I love. He took over and did a Black Panther run. And I read, I want to say maybe 2 or 3 arcs in that. So maybe 20 some odd issues. And it was great. I loved it. I loved it. I got to know the character more, and it was just like, holy crap. And this is a while back, so please, I'm not going to go into, because I don't really remember everything, what went on, so I'm not going to butcher it. But when I read it, I was like, wow, this is such a dope, in-depth character. I love the idea that, yeah, he is the king of the greatest country in the world, even though they're not, it's not like America. Like, they don't showboat it. They don't showcase it.
They're very secluded.
Exactly. So, yeah, so seeing Chadwick Boseman, if I'm not mistaken, that's the actor's name.
That's his name, yeah.
Holy crap, man. I fucking love this guy. I love this portrayal. I love every bit of him on screen, whether he was in the Black Panther costume or not. When he was on screen, I was engaged. I was into it. I was like, wow. And we're going to get a movie with him? And they pushed it back. That bothered me a bit. But I understand. You know what? It's going to happen. And people really took to that character in this movie. So I have no worries where they're going to go with it. And if I'm not mistaken, I do believe Ryan Coogler of Creed fame is directing that Black Panther movie. And I love Creed. I love that movie. So I am very excited to see where he's taken that character, that movie, because in Captain America Civil War, Black Panther was that dude. Like, he was perfect. Perfect. And I already spieled on Spider-Man. We're not even like going into it yet. We're going to get into that. But damn, when I'll tell you what they did with Black Panther in this movie, I was absolutely floored. I loved every minute he was on screen. There were even little moments, when he starts talking about the the Black Panther mantle being passed down through warrior to warrior, generation to generation. Now he's not only the Black Panther, but he's the king. And this is all while he's incarcerated next to Steve Rogers and Sam Wilson, you know, which is Falcon for those who don't know. And if you don't know, you better get on your damn comic book movies and comic books for that matter. But yeah, he was. Oh man, I can't wait to see more of him. And we're gonna see him more in the next Avengers movie before we get to see him in his standalone. Which, okay, doesn't bother me much, but I'll tell you this: we're gonna see a lot more of him. Him and Spider-Man. They're like the new Tony Stark and Cap. They're gonna take us into the future.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm stupid stoked for that. I cannot wait. But
and
yeah,
I really think that Ant-Man will play a much bigger role soon too. I mean, they.
Oh, was that a pun? Did you make a joke there? A much bigger role?
Inadvertently, but it is pretty funny, I suppose. I mean, I think they did a great job of setting Ant-Man up in the movie.
They sure did.
And Giant Man, really. You know, I think he's going to be. I hope he does have a much bigger role in the next movie. I mean, I don't know what we're getting first, Infinity Wars Part 1 or Ant-Man and Wasp, but it's. It made me want to go back and rewatch Ant-Man, which I was kind of like, oh, it was okay, but you know, Paul Rudd's phenomenal as in the role, you know.
And Scott Lang, yeah.
Scott Lang, yeah. You know, I'm so excited to see him with because he has, you know, his comedic timing is just so perfect. You know, obviously he does come from a comedy background, so he has that down. But his rapport and the way he talked to other characters and other characters talk to him, it was amazing. You know, and I can't wait to see his dialogue with these characters in the future, because he didn't have a whole lot of that in his Ant-Man movie. You know, obviously there's Janet Pym and Hank Pym and stuff, and as like mentors, pretty much. But that's not the same as, holy shit, I'm hanging out with the Avengers, I'm fighting with the Avengers and stuff right now.
Right.
You know, he really was Cap's Spider-Man. Both Spider-Man and Ant-Man were brought in by Tony and Steve, respectively, and they were just fucking in. Like, they came in to do their job and help out, and it was just, they were awestruck. They were the comic relief of that scene. It was fantastic.
Let's talk about that scene, because this is where the meat and potatoes of spoilers come in, because that sequence in the airport, when you see it in the trailers, they do absolutely nothing, okay? Because one, they don't show Spider-Man in those trailers, in the original ones at least. By now, everybody should know Spider-Man's in it, and if you're still with us by now, you already know we've gotten into some spoilers. So we're just gonna go fucking balls to the walls with this. That sequence in the airport, on the tarmac, holy fuck, Spider-Man and Ant-Man stole that show.
Mm-hmm.
They made both of those characters, the Russos took both of those characters and made them shine. And don't get me wrong, Black Panther had some awesome moments there, especially with Cap. There was a lot of cool moments with Scarlet Witch. The battle between Black Widow and Hawkeye was brief, but fun nonetheless. It was like, are we still friends? That depends on how hard you hit me. And then they're going at it, and all of a sudden, Black Widow goes flying. Why? Because Scarlet Witch is doing her chaos magic, chucking her to the side, and then she's telling Hawkeye, yo, you're pulling your punches. I love that. I was like, holy crap. Yeah, of course he is, because at the end of the day, he's not going to hurt somebody that were in Bucharest with him. You know, and you know that from Avengers 1. You know, they're a team. So I love that. Like Spider-Man, Giant Man, even Falcon too, to an extent, because when Falcon was like, "What's up, Tic Tac?" Oh man, The second and third time I saw that movie, the theater erupted. What's up, Tic Tac? When they called Ant-Man Tic Tac, man, the theater was bonkers. But then they get down and they do their thing. Whether it's Ant-Man flipping not Scarlet Witch, I'm sorry, Scarlett Johansson, Black Widow, as tiny Ant-Man, putting her in like an armbar and flipping her. That was cool. Running down Tony's suit, running into, this is your conscience. You haven't talked to me in a long time. That was hysterical. And then Spider-Man, they nailed it. He was crawling along the window, doing what a spider does. Then does the web swing into the window, knocking the Falcon back, catches the Winter Soldier's punch. Oh, dude, you got a medal on. That's awesome. The whole spiel from the commercial, and it was dope. One of the things that cracked me up with Spider-Man, though, and it was like they nailed his wit, his wittiness. They nailed it. He's on Falcon. He jumps on Falcon, and he's trying to punch him, and he's like, "You have the right to remain silent." Oh, man, I lost it. The theater was crying. Tears flowing out my eyeballs. I loved it. Dude, when that sequence started to happen, because we're DC fanboys, what was stirring within you at that moment?
I wasn't even thinking about DC at that moment. I was so sucked into that scene. Like, we get the shot of Team Iron Man and Team Cap, and we get extended versions that we didn't see in the trailers. So they're a little bit longer. They have Spider-Man in there. They have we just get a more full flushed out look of the teams really in the most badass shot, and then Vision comes in and draws a literal line in the sand, and that's when they start charging at each other.
They're not stopped. They're not slowing down. That was
just chills. Chills everywhere because of that. It was amazing. Yeah. I haven't gotten chills like that from a movie since Star Wars.
Ooh.
There's been quite a few good movies out this year, and nothing did it for me like that scene in such a long time, and it was amazing. For comic book fans, that has got to be one of the most special and just awesome scenes that we've ever gotten.
Yeah, I agree, and that's why I'm like, and I mean, that sequence alone don't make the movie, but Jesus, it puts that movie over the top. It really does. There was so many different moments of that scene. One of my particular favorite moments of that scene, of the movie, period, seriously, like maybe top 2, Spider-Man versus Captain America, and they're going at it, and Spider-Man he's webbing him, he's trying to web him, he gets his legs, he sweeps him, and he's like, yeah, Stark told me to go for your feet, and did Stark say this? Yeah, this, that, they going back and forth, and then, Spider-Man thinks he's got him, but Cap is so experienced and resourceful. Remember, according to this movie, Spider-Man's only doing this for 6 months. He's never been up against Captain America, who has got decades under his belt, even if he was frozen for most of that. But he does the thing, then he throws Spider-Man, and then he throws the shield into the whatever that is, the hydraulic system to drop, the tunnel down, and Spider-Man catches it. And man, let me tell you something. That scene right there, because then he goes, "You've got a heart, kid. Where are you from?" And Spider-Man goes, "Queens." And the look on Captain America's face brought tears to my eyeballs, because then he says, "Brooklyn." And I'm like, Brooklyn represent, baby. I'm from, oh, man, dude, that hurts. It hurt in a beautiful way. Like, tears in my eyes. I was like, holy shit. That moment right there just summed up that whole movie. What I was saying earlier about Captain America, this version of Cap being different from the comic book version, and I meant the ultimate version, this Cap's not out to hurt you, man. This Cap, if you really look at it, he wants nothing but peace. But he fights for what he believes in, and that's where I said sometimes it gets a little black and white, and he sees no gray in between. But that moment with Spider-Man, because he knew he was fighting a child. And that whole thing's, where you from, kid? Queens. And that look on Cap's face, man. And I'm in Vegas watching this 3 times, and they don't understand. But that Brooklyn kid and me, man, that came out, I was like, man, salute, damn you, Cap, I love it. And then he just left him alone, and it was beautiful, it was gorgeous. And then you had Ant-Man going Giant Man, and then you had one of my favorite lines in the whole freaking movie, which, of course, 2 of my favorite lines: Vision flying through Ant-Man, Giant Man at the moment, when Vision flew through him, and he was like, something just flew through me. Something just flew through me. Oh my God, I was dying. And then Spider-Man going, hey guys, you remember that really old movie, The Empire Strikes Back? Oh my God. Oh.
See, I actually didn't like that line much.
Well, because you're young.
It was funny. But you know me. You know that I appreciate Star Wars and don't consider it an old movie or anything like that. I think that's just, I don't think even 15-year-olds today consider Star Wars an old movie, and I'm more or less from that generation. I thought it was a little lame, but, cool nonetheless. I'm not faulting it.
I don't know. Yes. If I look at a 16-year-old Peter Parker in today, and Empire Strikes Back came out in 1981, that's an old-ass movie. I'm just saying. I appreciated that. As a big Star Wars fan that I am, and the fact that Disney owns both Marvel and Lucasfilms, I loved it, man. I did. And especially coming from Spider-Man's mouth, I thought it was absolutely perfect. That it came from him. Because it kind of did the throwback to when Cap is sitting in the helicarrier in Avengers 1, and they start saying something about Wizard of Oz, and he was like, oh, I understood that reference. It was genius. That moment, when I saw that in the theaters, I had a smile from ear to ear. So when Spider-Man, my favorite Marvel character, gets to spit a Star Wars reference, dude, I loved it. And especially it was like, War Machine was like, Yo, Tony, how old is this kid? I don't know. I didn't carbon date him. Oh, I lost it. The theater was cracking up in the last 2 times I saw it. It was just, man, listen, it was such a great ride, man. There was so much great stuff, especially in that sequence. But enough of that sequence.
There is 2 things in that scene, more or less, that kind of bother me.
All right, I want to hear it.
2 problems I have with the whole movie, really.
Okay.
And I know one of them is something a lot of people seem to have. When we first saw Spider-Man, first trailer, or the second trailer, rather, people were critical about the suit design. And I didn't love it at first. I was like, it's a little weird. It's a little, it's not the classic design that we're used to, but it still is to a degree. It's just changed in a way that we weren't used to. Anyway, I've grown to like the suit design. It's just, it looked too cartoony for me. I didn't think, it didn't look like a believable costume to me. It looked like blatant CG that just kind of like rushed through it a little bit. And
in the final movie?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't think the CG looked all that great for Spider-Man. I know some of it was a suit, but just still, the shade of red they picked and the thinness of the webbing lines on his suit just made it look really cartoony. And I don't know what it is about those 2 things together. It just made it look less believable to me. And the other thing would be, and this is in just about every single movie when there's like a big person among a bunch of little people, it's like Giant Man seems to be basically moving in slow motion. That just always really bothered me in every movie with a big guy with among a bunch of little guys. It looks weird.
I think, listen, I don't know where, I remember seeing something like that, because when I saw that for the first time, I loved it because he was moving in slow motion. I forgot where I saw it. There was a movie or a show where they actually broke that down through physics. And I'm no scientist, I'm not Tony Stark, and I don't know shit like that. But All I remember is when they were breaking it down and the reason why they move slow, when giants move slow, it made the world of sense to me. So when I saw Giant Man there, I mean, think about it. We watch Godzilla movies, dude. It's a slow moving character. Yeah, they slow it down from the suit when they film the thing, but it works on screen. Even Legendary's Godzilla moved slow. So when Giant Man was moving slow, it made sense to me because I was like, that show or movie or whatever it was that I, saw that for the first time when they started explaining the laws of physics and why was funny. Yet on the other side of that, when Spider-Man and Captain America meets for the first time, Spider-Man straight up like, that shield does not obey the laws of physics, does it? And that had me crying. Going to your Spider-Man thing, though, I totally see where you're coming from. I get it. Trust me. And this is not going to be like a debate between that. I did kind of like it, though. And I'll say why. I thought that, again, what Marvel was able to do with the Russos and Kevin Feige and just Marvel itself, they were able to give us that Spider-Man from the comic books, from the first comic book, from the old ones, so it looks cheesy. And I'm not saying that that's where it went. I totally understand where it didn't look finished. And we have 5 Spider-Man movies prior to this where, whether you loved them or hated them, Spider-Man looked freaking good. Mm-hmm. But I get where you're coming from with that. But on the flip side, for me personally, as a Spider-Man fan, I appreciated it not looking really good because it felt like a comic book. It felt like a cartoon. It felt cheesy in a way, in a sense, in a word. And I appreciated that, man, a lot. I did, because they didn't take him seriously. Let me rephrase that. They took him serious, but it didn't need to be too serious. It didn't need to be, and I hate to bring it back up, Batman v Superman serious. It was still lighthearted. It was still fun. So we have that giant scene, and you got your 2 standouts, right? Spider-Man and Ant-Man, and both of them look goofy. But they should, because they're comic book characters, and one grows to gigantic proportions, and the other one's swinging around in a red leotard. And it worked. They made it work. So, and again, I totally get where you're coming from, but I took the Spider-Man thing. I liked it because it felt like he's a cartoon, he's a comic book character, and they put that on screen. So that's just my take on it.
I mean, it didn't take, both of these things didn't take anything away from the movie by any means.
Right.
It's just something that took me out of the movie a little bit.
I totally got you.
And we've had these discussions before. I'm not super critical on bad plot points or anything like that. We had this discussion about the Avengers, the first one, with a couple things that just took me out of the movie. And Civil War is kind of the same for me. There was these 2 instances of, I think Spider-Man's suit looked a little bit, too much like a cartoon in this real world setting, and Giant Man moving in the slow-mo, which has always bothered me in every movie with a big person among tiny people. But, whatever. The scene, it was still cool. It didn't take anything away from the spectacle. The next scene happened, or the fight scene ended, and it was fine. It didn't bother me at all. It bothered me, I guess, but, it didn't... the movie isn't lacking because of this.
Gotcha. All right, well, check it out. We're going to wrap it up. So before we do, because there was still a lot to cover, but we're running out of time, let's do this quick lightning round. I'm going to throw some things out. Well, I'm not throwing nothing out. I'm just actually one thing. We do it rapidly. What was the standouts for you in this movie? Go for broke.
Spider-Man, Black Panther, Giant Man, the darker tone, some of the best quips and jokes we've ever gotten, and the choreography, the most of the special effects, the characters just as a whole, and how they developed over the course of the movie, and what was my last one? Robert Downey Jr.'s performance was amazing.
Amazing.
Like the best he's ever been as Iron Man.
Absolutely. I think everybody I've spoken to about this movie says the same thing. Robert Downey Jr. came out and knocked it out the park. He nailed it because he was cocky, but then when it came down to the nitty gritty, it was a different side of Tony Stark we've seen in 8 years.
He got to the emotional core of Tony Stark.
Right. Most of my things mirror yours. Spider-Man, Black Panther, of course, Giant Man, Tic Tac, which is funny. I actually like Crossbones in the beginning. I love that 15 minutes of the beginning. Great shit. The Iron Man, Captain America fight at the end, especially when
yes,
Cap's whipping his ass, and Iron Man's like, analyze his fight pattern. Got it. Let's kick his ass. Boom, 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 boom. Unbelievable. That blew me away. Black Panther, I said it already. Unbelievable. Vision was top notch. We didn't get into Vision, but I loved anything Vision and Scarlet Witch in this movie. I loved. Especially when he like walks through the wall in the beginning when you first see him, and she's like, "We talked about this." He was like, "I'm sorry, the door was open, so I just assumed." That was perfect. I loved it. And just the setup of this movie, the way it ended too, because Tony, it felt to me Tony kind of forgave. Because my only gripe with this movie was the end. Was he got mad because Winter Soldier killed his mom. And I got flashbacks to Batman v Superman. Why did you say that name? But that's neither here nor there. That was the only thing that kind of was like, yeah, okay, I got it. But yeah, at the end of the movie, Tony Stark reads the letter from Cap. He has the cell phone, and we know where that's gonna go eventually. That's gonna be Infinity War. Listen, brother, great freaking episode. Issue, I should say, great issue. Yeah, bro, we got a shit ton to talk about still. It's gonna be great, but we might
have to do a part 2 next week.
Oh, we'll do Civil War spoilers part 2. Why not? I don't care. But yeah, man, thanks for joining me on the show tonight.
Of course.
Yeah.
And I've only had one other person see it who I saw the movie with, so I've been dying to talk about it with someone.
Yeah, we had to wait a week. I'm sorry, but
yeah.
All right, everybody, listen, man, thanks for joining us. On behalf of G95, I'm G1, and this is the G Show's Comic Talk, issue number 3, Captain America Spoiler Review. Signing off, everybody. Later.